He handed his wife 2 first-class tickets and told me to wait at gate 42. I paid for the trip. I packed days in advance. I thought I was part of something. But the seat they left for me wasn't just in the back of the plane, it was outside their lives. I sat there quietly, like I always had, realizing the cost wasn't just money. It was years of being erased with a smile, and this time, I didn't smile back. My name is Margaret and I am 68 years old. Mom, can you hand me the carry-on? Andrew's voice snapped me out of my daze. Oh, of course, I said, lifting the small black suitcase onto the check-in scale. My fingers brushed the frayed strap he'd once used in college. I smiled at the memory, but he didn't notice. Bree stood beside him, scrolling on her phone. She didn't look up once during the process. 2 bags. First class. No pets, she muttered without lifting her head. My heart fluttered. First class? The clerk handed over 2 glossy boarding passes, and Bree plucked them from the counter. Here we go, she said, flashing a grin. Andrew and I are in 2A and 2B. I blinked. Wait, just you two? Andrew shifted. Yeah, Bree's back's been acting up, so we thought first class would be easier. He turned to the clerk, who slid me a flimsy paper pass. Gate 42. Economy. A tight laugh escaped me. That must be a mistake. I thought we were all sitting together. No, Bree said, slipping her sunglasses on. It's just a short flight. You'll be fine. But I helped pay for this trip. Andrew's voice lowered. Mom, don't make this a thing. Bree needs the space, and honestly, it's not that big a deal. Not that big a deal. The floor beneath me didn't shift, but it felt like it did. The sound of roller bags, overhead announcements, and clinking coffee cups blurred into a hum behind my ears. I forced a nod. Of course. You two go ahead. Bree took Andrew's arm and walked toward the security line without turning back. I stood there for a beat, holding my ticket, my tote bag, and a growing ache in my chest. I sat in the waiting area at gate 42, next to a young couple who shared a bag of pretzels and laughed about something on TikTok. My seat creaked when I shifted. I tugged at the cardigan draped over my shoulders, suddenly aware of how old and out of place I looked among the shiny luggage and Instagram-ready smiles. My phone buzzed with a message from Joan. Did you make it through security? Safe travels, sister. I typed back slowly. Made it. Just waiting at gate 42. Not with Andrew and Bree after all. Her response came fast. What? I thought this was a family trip. So did I. Excuse me, ma'am, are you in boarding group C? A gate agent asked. Yes. That's me. I stood up too quickly and nearly tripped over my own bag. The young man behind me offered a hand but looked away before I could thank him. As I walked down the jet bridge, I imagined Andrew stretching his legs up front, Bree sipping wine and posting a filtered selfie captioned "Jetting off with my love to Heartsta." Maybe a tiny mention of me in a buried comment. Or maybe not at all. Row 28F. Window seat. I pressed my forehead to the glass as the plane began to taxi. Excuse me, an older man said beside me, gesturing toward the seat. I scooted over, offering a smile I didn't feel. Of course. You traveling for work? He asked. No, I said softly. Family trip. He nodded. That's nice. I turned back to the window. It didn't feel nice. The flight attendant passed out peanuts and drinks. I took a ginger ale and sipped it slowly, pretending not to hear the clinking glasses and soft laughter from behind the curtain up front. "Isn't it sweet when your kids include you in their plans?" the woman behind me said to her seatmate. "My daughter won't go anywhere without me." My hand tightened around the cup. Mine didn't even want me in the same section. As we landed, a lump built in my throat. I tried to swallow it. I told myself it was silly to cry over a seat assignment. But it wasn't about the seat. It never was. It was about being quietly pushed aside. Reduced. Forgotten. They met me near baggage claim. Andrew held Bree's coat over his arm, her designer tote slung on his shoulder. "Flight okay?" he asked casually. "Fine," I said. Bree didn't even look up. "We've got the rental already. Let's grab the bags and head out." I opened my mouth to say something. Anything. To ask why. To remind them I wasn't just luggage they could store beneath the cabin. But I closed it again. Instead, I picked up my own bag and walked behind them, my steps slower, quieter. Later that night, alone in my hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed. The air smelled like citrus cleaner and something stale beneath it. I pulled the thin blanket over my lap and stared at the ceiling. In the dim light, the image of Gate 42 kept replaying in my mind. The moment Andrew didn't even try to pretend I mattered. The way Bree smiled like she was doing me a favor by letting me tag along. I had been excited. I had packed days in advance. I had made lists, called Joan 3 times, and even had my hair done. For what? I wasn't part of their story. I was the page they skipped. But something inside me stirred, small, slow. Maybe they didn't care how they made me feel. But I finally did. And that was a start. The suitcase thudded on the bed as I unzipped it. Still smelled faintly like the lavender sachet I tucked in every trip. I pulled out the worn blue cardigan I'd meant to wear for the flight home, if they'd bothered to wait for me. My phone buzzed. Bree posted a new photo. I tapped it. There she was. In sunglasses, holding a flute of champagne in first class. The caption read, "Jet lag? Not when you're pampered." Airplane kiss mark. Andrew's hand rested lightly on hers. Both smiling like they'd won something. They had. Me. The knock at the door was sharp and familiar. "Come in, Joan," I called. She strode in with her usual flair. "You're back already? I thought you were gone a full week." "It was just the weekend." I forced a smile. Joan tossed her purse on the chair. "So? Tell me everything. Where'd you sit on the plane? Did Bree behave like an actual human?" I sighed. "Gate 42. She blinked. "What?" "They upgraded themselves to first class. Left me back in economy." Joan's jaw dropped. "You're kidding." "I wish." I turned toward the dresser, folding my clothes one by one. She was quiet a beat. "You paid for part of this trip, didn't you?" I nodded. "More than part. They said they were tight on money." Andrew asked if I could spot them a little, just to make the getaway special. Joan leaned forward. "What did you give them?" 5,000. Joan's voice shot up. 5. Are you serious? He said it was a loan, I murmured. He said I'd be there too, that it was a family memory. That's why I said yes. Joan crossed her arms. You do realize you funded their little luxury escape while you got crumbs? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table with a stack of bank statements spread before me. The numbers blurred. I highlighted every transaction labeled transfer to Andrew. $2,000. $750. $1,200. Another $3,000 marked home repairs. I hadn't thought twice when he asked for help with the down payment on their house. Or when Bree needed money for that bridal startup that fizzled out after 3 months. It added up to more than just money. It was pieces of me. Time. Security. Trust. Gone. I flipped to the last page and froze. My savings account, what I thought had around $18,000 left, was down to $7,920. I sat back. Did I really let this happen? I whispered into the stillness. The next morning, Joan returned with coffee. You look like you didn't sleep, she said, setting the cup down. I didn't, I muttered. Joan. I think I'd been robbed. Not in one swoop, but slowly. With permission. She tilted her head. Explain. I slid the papers toward her. She scanned them, her eyes darkening. These are all recent. Over the last 2 years. Joan's voice dropped. I hate to say this, but Andrew and Bree, this is calculated. No, I shook my head, Andrew wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Take advantage of the one person who never says no? I swallowed hard. She wasn't wrong. Around noon, I texted Andrew. Me, can we talk sometime this week? Just us. I want to review something about the money I lent you. He replied an hour later. Andrew, is this about the trip? Mom, please don't ruin this. Bree already feels like you're judging her. I stared at the message, rereading Don't ruin this. I typed back slowly. Me, it's not about Bree. It's about respect. And what I've given. No response. That evening, I stood by my window, watching cars crawl past. Somewhere in that mess of headlights, I imagined Andrew driving Bree to another dinner. Another shopping trip. Another vacation I was funding without knowing. I whispered to myself, it wasn't a gift. Because gifts are offered with joy. This was taken. The final blow came when I opened my old planner and found a sticky note from 8 months ago. Wire $5,000 to Andrew, Bree's business idea. Promise to pay back by fall. Fall had come and gone. No repayment. Not even a thank you. Just a photo of them clinking glasses while I sat cramped between strangers, being offered stale pretzels and a complimentary headache. Joan called later that night. You okay? I think I finally see it, I said softly. They didn't just forget me. They used me. And what are you going to do now? I stared down at the envelope of highlighted statements. I didn't know the full answer yet. But I knew this. The next chapter would not be written with their pen. The suitcase thudded on the bed as I unzipped it. Still smelled faintly like the lavender sachet I tucked in every trip. I pulled out the worn blue cardigan I'd meant to wear for the flight home, if they'd bothered to wait for me. My phone buzzed. Bree posted a new photo. I tapped it. There she was. In sunglasses, holding a flute of champagne in first class. The caption read, Jet lag? Not when you're pampered. Airplane kiss mark. Andrew's hand rested lightly on hers. Both smiling like they'd won something. They had. Me. The knock at the door was sharp and familiar. Come in, Joan, I called. She strode in with her usual flair. You're back already? I thought you were gone a full week. It was just the weekend. I forced a smile. Joan tossed her purse on the chair. So? Tell me everything. Where'd you sit on the plane? Did Bree behave like an actual human? I sighed. Gate 42. She blinked. What? They upgraded themselves to first class. Left me back in economy. Joan's jaw dropped. You're kidding. I wish. I turned toward the dresser, folding my clothes one by one. She was quiet a beat. You paid for part of this trip, didn't you? I nodded. More than part. They said they were tight on money. Andrew asked if I could spot them a little, just to make the getaway special. Joan leaned forward. What did you give them? 5,000. Joan's voice shot up. 5. Are you serious? He said it was a loan, I murmured. He said I'd be there too, that it was a family memory. That's why I said yes. Joan crossed her arms. You do realize you funded their little luxury escape while you got crumbs? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table with a stack of bank statements spread before me. The numbers blurred. I highlighted every transaction labeled Transfer to Andrew. $2,000. $750. $1,200. Another $3,000 marked home repairs. I hadn't thought twice when he asked for help with the down payment on their house. Or when Bree needed money for that bridal startup that fizzled out after 3 months. It added up to more than just money. It was pieces of me. Time. Security. Trust. Gone. I flipped to the last page and froze. My savings account, what I thought had around $18,000 left, was down to $7,920. I sat back. Did I really let this happen? I whispered into the stillness. The next morning, Joan returned with coffee. You look like you didn't sleep, she said, setting the cup down. I didn't, I muttered. Joan. I think I'd been robbed. Not in one swoop, but slowly. With permission. She tilted her head. Explain. I slid the papers toward her. She scanned them, her eyes darkening. These are all recent. Over the last 2 years. Joan's voice dropped. I hate to say this, but Andrew and Bree, this is calculated. No, I shook my head, Andrew wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Take advantage of the one person who never says no? I swallowed hard. She wasn't wrong. Around noon, I texted Andrew. Me, can we talk sometime this week? Just us. I want to review something about the money I lent you. He replied an hour later. Andrew, is this about the trip? Mom, please don't ruin this. Bree already feels like you're judging her. I stared at the message, rereading Don't ruin this. I typed back slowly. Me, it's not about Bree. It's about respect. And what I've given. No response. That evening, I stood by my window, watching cars crawl past. Somewhere in that mess of headlights, I imagined Andrew driving Bree to another dinner. Another shopping trip. Another vacation I was funding without knowing. I whispered to myself, it wasn't a gift. Because gifts are offered with joy. This was taken. The final blow came when I opened my old planner and found a sticky note from 8 months ago. Wire $5,000 to Andrew, Bree's business idea. Promise to pay back by fall. Fall had come and gone. No repayment. Not even a thank you. Just a photo of them clinking glasses while I sat cramped between strangers, being offered stale pretzels and a complimentary headache. Joan called later that night. You okay? I think I finally see it, I said softly. They didn't just forget me. They used me. And what are you going to do now? I stared down at the envelope of highlighted statements. I didn't know the full answer yet. But I knew this. The next chapter would not be written with their pen. The knock at the door startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I pulled my sweater tighter and opened it. Joan stood there, hair wind-blown, cheeks flushed like she'd run across town. I found something, she said, holding up a faded brown envelope. It was in a box of my old papers, stuff from when George passed. I think he meant for you to have it. My breath caught. From George? She nodded. It has your name on it. Look. I reached out, fingers brushing over my late husband's handwriting. For Margaret. Open when you need reminding. I made tea, but it sat untouched on the table between us. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a single page. His voice echoed in my head as I read. If Andrew ever forgets who raised him, here's your reminder. I swallowed hard. Tucked behind the note was a folded legal document, yellowed slightly, but still crisp. I unfolded it slowly. What is it? Joan asked. A trust agreement, I murmured. From when George and I set up the joint account, before Andrew got married. She leaned in. What does it say? My eyes scanned the lines, every word sharpening like a knife. I'm listed as sole trustee. Joan blinked. Wait. You're the only one with authority? I nodded slowly. George never told me. I thought Andrew had full access. Why would George do that? She asked. I looked down at the note again. My throat tightened. Maybe he saw something I didn't. Joan sat back. Margaret, this changes everything. I don't know. You've been carrying their weight for years. Now you finally have the right to say no. My fingers clenched the paper. He's my son. And you're his mother. Not his doormat. I flinched. Joan reached across the table. I'm sorry. But this isn't about love anymore. This is about respect. I sat in silence for a long moment, the letter resting in my lap like a confession. That evening, I reread the trust agreement line by line. Margaret Elaine Whitmore, sole trustee and controlling signatory. Amendments require written approval from the trustee. Funds are to be used for family welfare, with trustee discretion. Every word was a quiet scream I'd ignored for years. George had planned this. Protected me. Shielded me from something he feared might happen. And I'd never noticed. Or maybe I hadn't wanted to. The next morning, Joan came back, this time with a card in hand. Monica, she said. My cousin. Family lawyer. She's good, and she's discreet. I hesitated. Do we really need a lawyer? Joan raised an eyebrow. You found out you have legal control over money Andrew thinks belongs to him, and his wife who treats you like a burden. You need someone who knows how this works. I took the card. I don't want to destroy my relationship with my son. Joan said gently, honey, that relationship is already broken. You've just been pretending it isn't. That hurt. Because it was true. I stared at the phone all afternoon. Picked it up. Put it down. Finally, I dialed the number. Monica Langford, came a calm, professional voice. Hi. Monica. My name is Margaret Whitmore. Joan Carr is my friend, she gave me your number. Of course, she said warmly. Joan told me you might call. I need to ask a few questions. About a trust. I'm free this Thursday, Monica offered. In person's better for something like this. I hesitated. Mrs. Whitmore, she said gently, you're allowed to protect what's yours. That one sentence hit me square in the chest. I'll be there, I said. That night, I stood in the doorway of Andrew's old bedroom. Still smelled faintly like the cologne he used in high school. Trophies. Photos. College textbooks. I remembered when George built the shelves. When we painted the walls blue because Andrew said green was too babyish. So many moments. So much love. But love wasn't what greeted me at dinner tables anymore. Now it was tension. Condescension. A credit card passed across the table like I owed them something. Maybe I did owe myself something. A line. A boundary. A pause. I placed George's note on my nightstand. If Andrew ever forgets who raised him. I traced the words with my finger. I wasn't ready to give up on him. But I was finally ready to stop giving up on myself. I clutched the folder tighter as I stepped into Monica's office. It was warm, quiet. Nothing flashy. A small plant on the window ledge, a framed photo of her with 2 kids. Mrs. Whitmore? She asked, standing to greet me. She had calm, dark eyes and a firm handshake. Margaret, please. Margaret, she repeated, gesturing for me to sit. Joan said you might be bringing a few things to look over? I nodded, placing the folder gently on the table between us. It's all here. Bank statements. Copies of transfers. The trust agreement. And a letter from my husband. George. She opened the folder without hesitation, skimming through the pages with practiced ease. Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't gasp. She just read. Thorough, steady. I watched her hands. They didn't tremble like mine did. Before you say anything, I blurted, I'm not trying to start a fight. He's my son. I need to understand what I'm allowed to do. Legally. She looked up. Margaret, do you feel like you've been taken advantage of? Yes. The word escaped before I could dress it up. And do you feel unsafe? Pressured to give more money? Ignored when you say no? I hesitated. Not unsafe. Just invisible. She nodded. That's still harm. Financial and emotional abuse aren't always loud. Sometimes they whisper. Sometimes they come with a smile. My throat tightened. I've always wanted to help him. Since he was little. I never thought it would feel like this. She leaned back in her chair. Margaret, you're not weak. You're generous. There's a difference. I stared at her, caught off guard. I don't feel generous anymore. That's because you've been giving without being seen. She slid the trust document closer. You are the sole trustee. That means you can pause, restrict, or restructure anything under your control without his permission. I didn't even know I had that power, I said quietly. Your husband did, she replied. And it looks like he knew this might happen. I nodded slowly. He did say. If Andrew forgets who raised him. Monica tapped her pen against the table. You want to protect your remaining savings? Yes. Then let's start there. She opened her laptop. I watched her fingers move quickly, typing in something I didn't understand but trusted. I'm drafting a freeze order on the trust-linked accounts. We'll notify the bank immediately. If Andrew tries to withdraw, it'll flag. Guilt knotted in my stomach. He'll be furious. She paused. That's not your responsibility. But he's your son. Yes. And you're still allowed to draw the line. It took 30 minutes. That's all. 30 minutes to change the balance of power that had been tilting for years. When Monica printed the papers, I signed them with shaking hands. Keep this copy, she said. And this is my direct number. If anything happens, calls, threats, guilt trips, you call me. Thank you, I whispered. Margaret, she said softly, you did something brave today. I nodded. But I didn't feel brave. I felt like someone had pulled a splinter from deep under my skin. It hurt. But there was space now. To heal. That night, I sat on the couch staring at my phone. I hadn't spoken to Andrew since Bree's birthday dinner. I hadn't told him about the freeze. I didn't owe him a warning. But I needed to ask one thing. I dialed. It rang twice before he picked up. Hey, Mom. Everything okay? I swallowed. Can I ask you something? Sure. Bree's getting ready for work, but what's up? Why did you let her treat me like that? There was a pause. What are you talking about? At the dinner. The trip. The money. She talks to me like I'm furniture. And you never stop her. He sighed. Mom, come on. It's not a big deal. Bree just jokes like that sometimes. It wasn't a joke, I said, voice flat. It hasn't been a joke for years. Why are you being so dramatic? You've always supported us. Why are you acting like it's a problem now? Because I finally looked at the receipts. Because I finally said no. Because you looked me in the eye and pushed the bill toward me like I was the help. I didn't say any of that. I just said, okay. And I hung up. I set the phone down gently on the table. Then I walked over to George's photo on the mantel. Thank you, I whispered. For seeing it before I did. The whisper inside me was louder now. It didn't say he's your son. It said he chose her silence over your voice. And for the first time in a long time, I chose mine. The phone rang at 8:07 a.m. I was still in my robe, halfway through a cup of lukewarm coffee, when I saw Bree's name flash across the screen. My stomach turned before I even answered. I let it ring once more. Then picked up. Hello? What did you do? Her voice came sharp and cold, no greeting, no pretense. I'm sorry? I said calmly. The bank, she snapped. They called this morning. Andrew's transfer was denied. The trust account is frozen. Why? I waited. Let the silence do what it needed to do. Margaret, she hissed. Did you mess with the account? I exhaled. Ask your husband why he forgot I co-own that account. She was quiet for half a beat. Then her voice exploded. This is beyond petty. Do you even understand what you've done? Andrew has a business trip this weekend. Those flights are booked. Meetings are planned. Clients are expecting him. I kept my voice steady. And I was expected to fund them? We didn't ask you for this, she said. No, I said. You just assumed. You're acting like some bitter old woman. I'm acting like someone who finally read the paperwork, I cut in. There's a difference. She made a guttural sound, like a laugh choked on rage. I can't believe you'd do this to your own son. To us. You can't believe I stopped paying for the life you two live? You've always helped, she shot back. You've never made it a thing before. That's because I thought I was giving. Not being used. You're ungrateful, she spat. That made me pause. Ungrateful? I repeated. We let you be part of our lives. We included you. You think other daughters-in-law would do that? A slow burn spread through my chest. You handed me economy seats and grocery bills and called it family, I said. And you did it with a smile. I see that now. You'll regret this, she snapped. I didn't reply. Just hung up. The silence that followed felt strange. Not heavy. Not anxious. Just still. I stared out the window, watching a bird land on the railing of my porch. I took another sip of coffee. Still lukewarm. Still enough. By noon, Joan was at my door with her sunglasses perched on her head and a grin already forming. Well, she asked. Did she call? She did. And? She screamed. I listened. Joan let out a low whistle. I'm proud of you. I really am. I didn't feel proud, I admitted. I felt clear. She nodded. Sometimes that's better than proud. She took me to a small Italian place we used to visit before George passed. The breadsticks were still warm, the wine still too sweet, the lights still just a little too dim for a lunch spot. To finally waking up, Joan said, raising her glass. I lifted mine. To silence ending. We clinked glasses. We laughed, we shared a plate of lasagna, and she told me about her granddaughter's latest obsession with roller skating. But even as I smiled, there was a tug inside me. A weight that hadn't gone away. I didn't want it to be like this, I said, voice quieter. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to win anything. You didn't win, Joan said gently. You stopped losing. I looked at her. She meant it. Later that evening, I sat in the living room with the lights off, only the glow of the TV flickering in the corner. A part of me ached. For the boy who used to ask me to stay 5 more minutes at bedtime. For the man who stopped asking how I was doing. I picked up my phone again. Scrolled through our old text thread. Andrew, thanks for the birthday card, Mom. Love you. Me, proud of you always. Let me know if you need anything. Andrew, Bree and I might need help with the AC acting up again. Me, of course. I'll transfer something tonight. Message after message. One-sided generosity, quiet expectations. I closed the thread. I wasn't bitter. I was awake. The knock was sharp, rushed. I pulled the curtain back and there he was, Andrew. He didn't ring the bell. Didn't call ahead. Just stood there on my porch with his hands in his pockets and his eyes downcast like a boy caught with his hand in the cookie jar. I opened the door. Andrew. Mom. He didn't smile. Can we talk? I nodded and stepped aside. He didn't move. He started, then looked over his shoulder like Bree might appear from the sky. Can we not do this out here? I crossed my arms. You're the one who showed up without warning. Bree's upset. You embarrassed us. I stared at him. Come in, Andrew. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one he used to do homework on. I placed the folder between us, the one with the ledger I'd been building for weeks. He looked at it, hesitant. What is this? I opened it, turned the pages slowly. This, I said softly, is everything I've paid for since you turned 18. He blinked. Wait, what? Read it. His fingers brushed the paper. His mouth moved silently as he read the first few entries. Freshman tuition deposit, $750. Used car down payment, $3,200. Emergency dental, $940. Bree's business startup, $5,000. Flight to Cancun, anniversary trip, $1,800. His brow furrowed. I didn't realize. You didn't want to realize. He looked up. Mom, come on. I kept my voice steady. You thought it just disappeared into the air? That every dinner I paid for, every loan I never got back, every trip I wasn't included in, that none of it mattered? It's not like that. No? I tilted my head. Then what is it like? He swallowed. I thought you wanted to help. I did, I said. But you stopped asking. You started expecting. He looked away. Bree, she doesn't mean to be harsh. She looked me in the face and said I was lucky to be included, I snapped. He shifted in his seat. She was upset. She's always upset when I say no. The front door creaked open without a knock. Bree. I told you not to come here without me, she said to Andrew, then turned to me. Are we seriously doing this? Is this some kind of guilt parade? Bree, I said evenly, you're in my home. She scoffed and walked in anyway. Oh, right. The Queen's castle. Why are you here? I asked. To fix this, she said. To undo whatever stunt you pulled with the trust account. It's not a stunt, I replied. You froze our access, she barked. You sabotaged Andrew's business trip. I protected what I own, I said. And what George and I built together. Bree leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You're just bitter. And bored. And finally realized you have no control over your son's life. Before I could respond, the door opened again. Monica stepped in, calm as ever, briefcase in hand. Apologies for the interruption, she said. You must be Bree. Bree blinked. Who are you? Monica Langford. Margaret's legal representative. Trustee advisor. She extended a hand, which Bree did not take. Monica looked at Andrew. Nice to meet you. We've spoken with the bank, and effective immediately, Margaret's authority over the trust is reasserted in full. Andrew's eyes widened. Wait, what does that mean? It means, Monica said gently, your mother isn't required to explain, defend, or fund anything unless she chooses to. Bree's face went pale. You're joking. No, I said softly. She's not. Andrew looked like he wanted to shrink into his chair. But, we need that money. You've needed me for a long time, I said. But you haven't seen me in years. That's not fair, he muttered. No, Andrew. What wasn't fair was leaving me at gate 42 with a boarding pass you didn't even look at. What's not fair is pushing the check across the table like I work for you. What's not fair is erasing me and calling it love. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Bree stepped forward. This isn't over. Monica raised an eyebrow. Actually, legally, it is. Unless you'd like to challenge the terms of the trust. But that would involve a court hearing. Under oath. With a financial audit. Bree's lips pressed into a tight line. She turned and stormed out the front door without another word. Andrew looked at me one last time. But this time, I didn't look away. After they left, Monica gathered her things. You okay? I nodded slowly. I think so. You handled that with grace. I gave a small smile. I didn't flinch. No, she said. You stood tall. I looked down at the empty chair where Andrew had just been. And I realized something. I wasn't waiting for him to grow up anymore. I was finally growing into myself. The air by the ocean smells like salt and second chances. My new apartment is small, 2 rooms, no stairs, and a sliding door that opens to a narrow balcony with chipped paint. But from there, I can see waves roll in, steady as breath. No one's shouting. No one's handing me receipts I never asked for. Joan came to help me unpack. She opened one box labeled kitchen and laughed. Did you really need 3 tea kettles? One for every phase of emotional denial, I joked. She smiled, but her eyes softened. You look lighter already. I feel it, I said. Even if I'm still learning what to do with the quiet. Tuesday mornings, I walk 2 blocks to the community center. It's not fancy. But the paint room has big windows, and the sun cuts across the easels just right. Today we're working with wet on wet, I told the group, mixing blues and greens. Let the water guide the color, not the brush. A woman named Gloria raised her hand. What if I mess it up? You will, I smiled. That's how you learn what not to fear. They laughed. I laughed. And that sound? I hadn't heard it from myself in years. A week after I moved, a bouquet arrived at my doorstep. White lilies, a single yellow rose tucked in the middle. No note. I didn't need one. I left them on the counter. I watched the petals open. Then I tossed them out before they wilted. Later that night, a text buzzed on my phone. Bree, we're working through some things. Thanks for giving us space. I stared at it. Then placed the phone screen down. I didn't reply. Not out of spite. Just clarity. Joan and I sat at a seafood diner by the pier the following Friday. She dipped a fry into ketchup. So, what now? You're free. What do you do with that? I smiled. I wake up. I make coffee. I teach painting. I walk by the water. No more fires to put out? No more fires that aren't mine. Joan tilted her head. You know, I don't think I've ever seen you without some weight in your shoulders. I think I got used to wearing it. And now? I exhaled. Now I'm just wearing myself. The following Sunday, I needed to pick up a friend from the airport. Her daughter had booked her a ride back home after visiting from Seattle, and somehow the app failed. So I drove. I hadn't been back to the airport since that day. As I pulled into the terminal, I saw the signs. Gate 40. Gate 41. Gate 42. That ache in my chest came quickly. But it didn't stay. I parked and stepped inside. The crowd buzzed with suitcases and coffee cups and tired toddlers clinging to mother's hips. And then, there it was. Gate 42. The seat I had waited in. The tile I had stared at. The silence I had swallowed whole. I walked past it. Not fast. Not bitter. Just forward. When we got back to my place, Gloria handed me a wrapped bundle. I painted this after class, she said shyly. It's not perfect, but... I opened it. A watercolor of waves and sky. In the middle, a figure standing tall at the edge of a dock. No lines. Just color. Freedom. It's beautiful, I whispered. She grinned. You helped me feel brave. I looked at her, and something bloomed in me. Maybe I hadn't lost family. Maybe I'd just started building the one I needed. That night, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea, one of the 3 kettles had survived, and watched the moon pull shadows across the water. I didn't think about Bree. Or the flowers. or the money I'd spent. I thought about what it meant to live without asking permission. To stand in a space that belonged to me. And to never again wait at a gate someone else told me to stand by. The silk scarf smelled faintly of cedar and old perfume. George gave it to me on our 20th anniversary. I found it tucked in the back of my drawer last week, wrapped in tissue paper like it had been waiting, just like me. I draped it gently around my neck, checked my passport again, then picked up the envelope on the counter. One passenger. One name. One destination. My name. Not Mom. Not Mrs. Whitmore. Not Andrew's emergency contact. Just me. The airport was quieter than I remembered. Or maybe I was just more present. First class, international, I said softly to the attendant. She scanned my boarding pass. Florence? Lovely choice. Then she smiled. We've been expecting you. I don't know why, but that line hit something in me. I returned the smile and stepped forward. Inside the lounge, everything was plush and hushed. No rushing, no pushing. I sat near a window, sipped ginger tea, and pulled out a small card I had written 2 nights before. It was just one sentence. You are not the gate. You are the journey. Ma'am, we're ready to board. I walked slowly, deliberately. My steps didn't feel heavy. They felt whole. As I reached the plane door, the flight attendant greeted me with a warm nod. Welcome aboard. Right this way. Seat 2A. Window. First class. I settled in and let my fingers trail along the leather armrest. The seat next to me was empty. I didn't mind. I wasn't waiting for anyone. Would you care for a glass of wine? The attendant asked. Yes, I said. Red. Please. She returned with a delicate glass, the wine dark and shimmering. I raised it slightly, to no one in particular. But in my mind, I whispered, to every time I waited. To every moment I stayed quiet. To now. As the plane taxied, I glanced down at the scarf in my lap. George had tied it around my neck the day he proposed we take that trip to Paris, one we never got to take. I think he'd like Florence too. He always said I had an artist's heart. I'm just now learning to live like it. 30 minutes into the flight, I took out the card again. You are not the gate. You are the journey. I let the words settle. I wasn't the place people passed through. I was the path. I was movement. I was the choice. A message pinged on my phone before I switched it off. Andrew, safe travels, Mom. Maybe when you get back, we can talk. I didn't reply. There was nothing cruel in that. Just peace. The clouds parted outside my window. Below, the earth stretched open like a canvas. For the first time in years, I felt like my life belonged to me again. Not because someone gave it back, but because I finally stopped handing it away. And somewhere between home and Florence, I let go of waiting. And started becoming. Hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe for more true feeling stories about silent strength and second chances. Your voice matters, just like hers did.